Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this session, May 16th, 2023, of Quispamsis Town Council. May I have the approval of the agenda, please? It's been moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Bigger. On the question, please vote now. Councillor Donovan, you good? We're good. Motion carried 5-0. I have a few comments this evening. I had the opportunity recently to meet with Monsieur Olivier from the Lacey International School. This is a not-for-profit organization, a francophone school to our region with the first classes set for next year. Officials are reporting great progress on their facility at Market Square in St. John, and application numbers are strong. So we certainly look forward to the opening of the school at Market Square. And I'd like to congratulate, on behalf of Council and all residents, the Kennebecasis Valley High School Reach for the Top team for winning the provincial championships for the 10th year in a row. KV outlasted Bernice McNaughton High School from Moncton to compete in an undefeated championship run. It's the school's 17th New Brunswick title in 18 years. Congratulations. And just a reminder that Quispamsis town-wide yard sale is Saturday, May 27th. If you are among the sellers, add your home address to our list of participants by going to the Town of Quispamsis Facebook page and click on Events. Tomorrow, May 17th, is the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. This day is meant to draw attention to the violence and discrimination experienced by lesbian, gay, bisexual, and trans persons, and more broadly against all people with diverse sexual orientations, gender identities, or expressions and sex characteristics. Everyone has the right to be their true self, and we just ask everyone to be kind. May 20th is the Drawn to It Youth Art Exhibition at the KV Youth Oasis Center. This event focuses on local young artists in the area, showcasing their talent and skill, as well as raising money for the KV Oasis. Works include paintings, drawings, sketchings, and digital art. Money raised will have an impact on the artist and the community. June is ALS month. ALS, commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease, destroys the motor neurons, which are an important link in the nervous system, impacting muscles that control the arms, hands, and legs. The ALS Society of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia is holding its annual Walk Strong event on Sunday, June 4th, along Harbour Passage in St. John to raise money and awareness. Quispamsis will mark Shriners International Day on June 6th in recognition of their 150th anniversary. What started as a group of Masons meeting annually in New York City in 1870 has turned into an international fraternity with over 200 chapters around the world. Many of us know and support Shriners hospitals as they improve the lives of children by protecting and providing pediatric specialty care, research, and education for medical professionals. There are children in this region benefiting from Shriners medical services, and we thank the Shriners. That is it for my notes this evening. I would ask Councillor Olson if he would please read the moment of reflection. Councillor Olson.
We would like to respectfully acknowledge that Quispamsis exists on the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik, Maliseet, and Mi'kmaq people whose ancestors, along with the Passamaquoddy tribes, signed peace and friendship agreements with the British Crown in the 1700s. We would like to take this moment to pay respect to the elders, past and present, and the descendants of this traditional territory. And may we remind ourselves of the important work we have before us tonight. May we make good decisions without prejudice or bias, and always in the best interests of our community, which we are here to serve.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. Next item on the agenda is presentations. And this evening we have one from Recreation New Brunswick, Jim Fox Award of Distinction. And the recipient is here among us. Each year, Recreation New Brunswick presents its Jim Fox Award of Distinction to an individual, community, facility, or group in recognition of their meritorious and significant achievement at the community or provincial level. The recipient shall have made a significant and distinct contribution to the field of recreation through such areas as growth, development, and enhancement of recreation. Dana Purton Dixon, our own Community Services Director, exceeds all of the criteria. Dana is our Director of Community Services for the town of Quispamsis, a valued and trusted member of the town's executive team. Dana has been a passionate recreational professional for more than 30 years. Under her outstanding leadership, our Community Services Department has flourished, and the town's recreational offerings have increased exponentially and continue to do so. Throughout her tenure, Quispamsis has seen an increase in active transportation and recreation thanks to the creation of an addition of 15 kilometers of multi-use trails, with the continued goal of providing an active transportation network that connects one end of the town to the other. Dana has helped spearhead multiple complex projects, including the creation of the Qplex, the Millennium Cycle and Sport Mountain Bike Park, revamping the Meenans Cove Beach House, and the community's first splash pad, which will open next month. She has helped bring about sustainable environmental change to the town of Quispamsis through the revitalization of Matthews Cove, which allowed for the decommissioning of the long-standing sewage lagoon, transforming it into a functioning natural wetland park, which residents enjoy daily. With Dana's vast connections, knowledge, and experience with programming and events, the town of Quispamsis has been able to provide its residents, as well as the region, with major events such as the 2016 TELUS Cup, 2018 World Under-17 Hockey Challenge, and a 2023 World Junior Hockey Championship pre-competition game between the United States and Finland, which sold out in 100 minutes. Most importantly, Dana has helped to create a department that is held in high esteem throughout the province. Dana and her team are regularly contacted by other municipalities looking for guidance on matters related to recreation, parks, and events. Dana's contributions to recreation are felt in our community and at the regional, national, and international levels as well. She is the current president of the Fundy Recreation Professionals Association. While in this capacity, she was part of the think tank that has helped to advance women in sport and recreation in New Brunswick through the creation of She Is Active NB. Dana is past president of Recreation New Brunswick and has also served 2 terms as a board member of the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. While on the board of the CPRA, she helped to develop the framework for recreation in Canada, the guiding document for public recreation providers in all of Canada. She has also volunteered with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, helping with economic development projects in St. Lucia, Dominican, and Grenada. Dana's dedication, commitment, and service to her community are second to none. For all her many contributions, Dana Purton Dixon is this year's recipient of the Recreation New Brunswick Jim Fox Award of Distinction. Dana, thank you for all you do. You obviously have been recognized not only by your town and by your colleagues and your council mates, but also by the province and Canada. So thank you so much. It's wonderful to be able to deliver great news like that. And we're so proud of Dana. I'm very proud of all of our staff, and I thank them for all their contributions. Next on our list is the Recreation Master Plan with our presenter, Mr. Jim Scott, Trace Planning and Design. Mr. Scott, welcome. Councillor Bigger, is there any disclosure of interest this evening? Seeing there are none, we will move forward to Jim. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bigger.
Good evening. Thanks very much for having us this evening. We're very excited to present the final plan to you for brief discussion and submittal to future planning processes and recreation planning. Essentially, the Recreation Master Plan is, you've seen, a very thick document meant to be a guideline really for the next 30 years of Dana's career at the town here, and has a number of initiatives that are built into the plan that reposition the town relative to recreation facilities, recreation programming, recreation activities, and connectivity throughout the town. The document is meant to be a 10-year document, so we think in terms of 10 years as being quite a bit of time, but in terms of recreation planning, facility planning, and formatting how recreation works in your editing of streets, trails, that kind of thing. 10 years is not a long time, but the major components that you have in your plan, there's an updated level of service model for recreation delivery in Quispamsis, an evolved parks and outdoor facilities network model, as well as an evolved indoor facilities network model. And finally, there is an implementation strategy and plan that moves forward on a step-by-step basis. And essentially, at the end of this document, you will see a step-by-step guide that Dana can follow with her staff to go through the different activities of the plan moving forward. A lot of the components of the plan are very much interrelated, so there are options and opportunities in different types of facilities and activities depending on where the region goes with recreation and where the town will require recreation delivery in the next few years. But as I said, it's a 10-year plan. You will revisit this and again in another 10 years. So our job is to provide you with that guide that moves you over the next 10 years. A couple really interesting things about Quispamsis and working here in Quispamsis with residents, with yourselves, and especially with staff, is absolutely beautiful environment here. We have a beautiful waterway. We have very wonderful residential environments. We have an evolving street and trail network moving toward active transportation within the town. We have wonderful facilities. In fact, some of the facilities here are absolutely world class. They provide us with places where we have access to the river, places where we can get together for various recreation. The Q-Plex obviously is one of Canada's finest facilities of its type. We have facilities that are older but are very well maintained. Your staff's doing a wonderful job maintaining. And these facilities may exist as what they are in the future or may present facilities for other opportunities, whether it be within recreation or residential commercial development in the future, as well as right here in the heart of the town, here at Town Hall, adjacent over at the library, is that we have a wonderful cultural heart. All of these are really great DNA to move forward with developing a recreation master plan. And then we think of how these places are connected beyond just the street network. We have really wonderful trail networks that are evolving, as you noted about Dana's work in the trails, really coming along strong. And of course, the QR Trail, or unless you're in Rothsay, they call it the RQ Trail for some reason. But just an absolute amazing asset. Powerful from a recreation point of view, powerful from a social point of view, and certainly powerful from an active transportation point of view. And if you look at this thing, just beautiful trail going over wonderful landform. What a wonderful asset, according to everybody we talk to with residents. What if we could connect this to St. John in the future? Think of the power of something like that going forward in the future. So without a doubt, this plays a big role in the plan. Equally wonderful within this town is the people that live here and the activities that they're undertaking. A very active community within the town. A lot of folks getting out and really making facilities happy, using a lot of the facilities that you have. And without a doubt, an amazing staff. And I had the pleasure of being at the conference when Dana received her award from the province, and it was absolutely spectacular to hear her stand up and take no credit for what she had just accomplished. Gave it all to her team, and her team was all around her, and it was really amazing to feel that power and energy. People that come to work every day because they love what it is that they're doing, they love who they're doing it for, and they love the result of their work. They love seeing what happens when you paint an old set of stands, or when you maintain a ball field, you work on a planting bed, that there's a direct attachment to each other and to the facilities. And you don't always get to see that in communities that get into a very large size. You are so lucky to have a very powerful group of people working here that are really attached to what it is that they do here. The Recreation Master Plan, what I'm going to do is spend about 15 minutes to go through the components of the plan. You've had a chance to scan I'm sure you've read every page in detail of the document that was submitted to you. The presentation that I'm showing you this evening is a little different than the PDF document that was submitted to you, in that there's animated pieces within this that just don't transfer to PDFs. So it's exciting and new what you're going to see tonight. As I said, about 15 minutes. There's 4 components of this that I'm going to speak to, and that's what's within your Recreation Master Plan, the master plan themes that were determined by residents in the community, determined with the council, determined with staff moving forward, what is the resulting network of facilities and connectivity, and then the implementation strategy and task at the end of the document. So I'll go through each one of these individually in broad strokes. As I said, you've had a chance to review the plan, so I'm not going to get into the components of the plan because it would take days. But I will hit the big strokes and the big messages that are inherent within the document. So the first one, what's in your Recreation Master Plan? 4 key components that are built into the plan. First is that you have a platform of facilities and parks that deliver recreation services and assets to the community today. They also deliver recreation assets to the region. So we've looked carefully at how things are being delivered to the community and how things are being delivered to the region from within this community, and inversely, what is the region providing to this community, and how that all works together for within the network, greater network. The reason we look at it from a regional point of view, for example, if you have a group that wants to come and build, say, 8 ball fields within the community, you can look at the assessment that we've provided you within the document and say, well, according to our plan, we require 3. So anything beyond 3 would be outside of our investment. However, if we were required 3, we could possibly participate in something like that. So it gives you a really good platform to move forward in regional positioning and working with everybody else, so you know exactly what your position is relative to statistics within the community. With our platform and understanding of everything that is offered here within the community, physically and activity wise, we began consultations with user groups in the community, minor hockey, minor soccer, that kind of thing, and then got into it with residents to talk about what are the real key components going forward of recreation that we want to revectorize ourselves over the next 10 years. That led into the creation of an updated network model, which is in the document and you've seen, and is the master plan itself. What's really important is who we're doing this for. And of course, we know that the demographics within the community are changing slightly. We know that our younger groups are beginning to see a decrease in the amount of residents per population basis. So for example, the 0 to 14, 18 to 24, 25 to 64 are starting to see a little decrease in overall in terms of what percentage of the overall population, and we're seeing a rise within the senior populations. When we speak to the senior populations, they've been very, very clear as to what they think recreation is about. Social activity, gathering for all people within the community. And then we ask them, okay, well, how do we work with those other numbers? What are the things that we need to do to make this the greatest community in Canada from a recreation and lifestyle point of view, and they give us a very clear series of messages, as well as everybody else in the community gave us a very clear series of messages. So all these people, obviously dressed at the Gap, came up with a very clear vision as to what recreation is going forward in the community. One is that the power of our neighborhood is something we really want to get back to. So although we tend to put facilities in areas that bring people together within the town, we all live outside of our front door and begin to look at the notion of neighborhood and the notion of community again. So just different things like street parties, things that begin to pull together people as a neighborhood to build up that neighborhood pride, extend it into community pride, and get it out into the entire town. Without a doubt, connecting people together and connecting people to nature. So making sure that we have active transportation routes in areas that have either access to some of the beautiful natural assets like water or treed forested stands, continuous views of some of these areas, and making sure that there are relationships between those things. Without a doubt, supportive, inclusive, and accessible networks going forward. That is a foundational piece of a long-term parks renovation that is built into the master plan. And then finally, making sure the department has the capacity to service, maintain, operate these facilities over time. So we begin to see focusing on different types of parks and different types of facilities for the purpose of investing for activity and operations over time. Extending out of this, residents were very clear, gave us several words that want to form the basis of what a master plan and what a network is built on, with 8 big ideas coming through at the core of this. One, without a doubt, we want to have quality facilities that are accessible and are mixed use. So not just single-use facilities, we want multiple types of uses that bring together. Multi-generational in the sense that we don't create senior facilities, we don't create youth facilities, we create facilities that work for senior and youth together. We're pulling our people together, we're inclusive of everybody. Without a doubt, getting into natural environments where within our community we have access to these environments and that we have great social spaces for pulling people together in a community. The core of all of the park program or park initiatives that are placed in the plan is about getting people together in natural spaces within their community and then attaching those with active transportation links throughout the town. So we end up with a network all based right out of our front door, accessed immediately from our front door, and that this is available on a year-round basis. So these are vision words that are very, very important, and when you read the plan, they will continually come through. They're very well positioned in the document. The next one is the master plan network. Moving on, I've included 3 themes in the last one, but the master plan network, there are 4 components to your network that are important. Regional facilities, regional parks, community parks, and then an active transportation component. Keeping in mind that this is not an active transportation plan, but it is something that came up an awful lot, so there are components in this document that are meant to feed forward to a future active transportation plan. Regional facilities, so this gets into the facilities such as your arenas, pool type facilities, and how you are positioned relative to the region. So we know where people are using facilities. We know where people are using facilities in the town, where they're provided to the region, and we've been able to provide a very clear series of numbers that speak to what is your requirement for regional facilities. Again, this is very good benchmark material when you're looking at future regional facilities to see what it is that you can afford to deliver and what is your requirement, and therefore what might be here or what might be outside. So when you're looking at this in the document, you'll see, and this is indoor ice, for example, today you presently have 2 indoor ice facilities, and that your benchmark for delivery is 1 facility for about 12,000 people. So that is a number that is projected out to your 2032 need. Today you're about 1 to 10,000, but by 2032 you'll be about 1 to 12,000. And you can have a look and see that in 2021 you required under that number 1.56 ice surfaces, and you will require 1.66. Ice surfaces by 2031 or 2032. So what that means is that both your ice surfaces are important. They're going to be very important to keep, and you can see at 1.66, that means roughly statistically that there's 0.33 or whatever it is, 0.34 of your facility is delivering to folks from outside the community. And that's important, and I won't belabor that much, but you'll know what that means when you begin to think a little bit about regional facilities. Another regional facility that is important is your regional parks, and these are components of your parks network that serve the entire region. These are not based on any spatial or statistical distribution. They're usually based on either an environmental asset or an important activity asset, so things like waterfront parks, ball fields, soccer fields, that kind of thing. Tennis courts, things that pull people in here and deliver at the regional level. And then community parks. So this extends from that idea of strengthening your community, meaning that from our front door, somewhere within 1.7 kilometers or a 10-minute bike ride, according to the youth that we talked to developing the master plan, we have a community park that has multi-generational facilities that are accessible. In some cases have places where we can walk our dog. In all cases have social infrastructure that can pull us together for conversations. So these become the community hearts that we begin to connect with active transportation nodes. So regional parks, for example, you have about 14 that deliver facilities within the town, but also are available within the region. So these are wonderful facilities. And then your community parks, you actually have 13, so just one less than your regional park. But these are the parks that are meant to deliver immediately close within the community. And if you have a look at that distribution model that I talked about, 1.7 kilometers from everybody's front door, and we look at the area coverage or the level of service coverage for each one of those, you can see the town is very, very well covered. And we've asked the staff just to look at 3 areas where we're likely going to need future parks to make sure we have full coverage. There's 2 things at play here when we look at full coverage. One, it's either a transportation asset like a highway or a very busy roadway that creates some separation, or 2, that they're developing areas where we will require park facilities in the future. So that is our regional and community parks that are built in the plan. The final piece is the active transportation component. As I mentioned, active transportation is not the core of the plan. However, I think residents were very clear. If the document was delivered to you today and only one thing happened, one page got pulled out, given to Dana and said to do, it would be active transportation. People were very keen about the trail system, walking, running, looking at your existing street network and evolving it towards something that is more multi-use in nature. So because of that, we've included some components in the plan that speak to the type of facilities that can be explored in the active transportation plan in the future or in a future active transportation plan. So things like independent pathways, much like what you have on the QR trail, different facilities that work directly with your street network for pedestrian or transportation use within short distances, and then some of the broader connective pieces for more active use of your streets. So cycling out of town or cycling to make connectivity on broader destinations or regional destinations. So that is within the plan. It's intended to be pulled out and directly imported into a future active transportation component. So that's the 4 pieces of the plan of the network. The final thing I'm going to talk to very rapidly is the implementation strategy and task. The implementation plan that we have within your document is based on 3 phases. The first phase is about stabilization of the existing parks and facility network to deliver, fill gaps, and to upgrade the facilities to make sure we're delivering at that community level and that we're beginning to rethink how we deliver regional facilities over the next 10 years in the event that we have changes such as soccer fields or we have changes such as rethinking arenas. So the components of that include building collaborative partnerships with our neighbors, building stronger recreation-based relationships with funders such as the province, the feds, as well as private individuals. Also, that this document needs to become a component of your municipal plan. So when it goes forward to Dwight and Dwight's beginning to work on a municipal plan update, there is 100% of this document moves over into that. There are specific policy pieces that move into that planning process. The policy pieces in here, when you accept the plan, will move into that. They will be vetted 1 or 2 more times through public, through yourselves, and then will eventually end up inside the components that are deemed worthy will end up inside an updated municipal plan in the future. And then there are some high priority projects. Short-term projects, there's some low-hanging fruit pieces to do, and then there's some other park pieces to look at. So that includes things like looking at Cedar Ridge as one of our model projects, which we're beginning to look at now, to upgrade that as a model type facility going forward. Different things like signage as some of the beach parks and other parks, accessible improvements, the active transportation plan piece, a long-term look at the Qplex relative to other facilities and the evolution of those facilities over time, such as the QMA, such as things like soccer fields and ball fields. And then there is a future turf complex, again, all of this being interrelated. So it considers what is the future of soccer within the community relative to the Qplex, relative to the QMA. So you can see how it's all very interrelated. But of course, Dana's super excited to get going on those right away. The second one, phase 2, is positioning projects, and these are the projects that we look at to really make this one of the most wonderful recreation communities in Canada, and certainly one of the most livable communities within New Brunswick. Included in that are the various medium priority projects. We've spoken before about the Arts and Culture Park, this area, how that evolves to become the cultural heart of the region, not just within the town. Look at the Hammond River Park, how that expands, how we get an additional access to the water and additional activity on the water from within Quispamsis. Looking at the QMA over time, Healthy Today. At some point, that'll need to be considered what its future is. Looking at public art, signage, how we brand and image our community as a product, both in terms of online presence and presence within our facilities and outside of our facilities, and then how we deliver regional projects, who we're working with to do regional projects, what the definition of regional will be to you going forward, how that gets looked at, and finally, how all of this, when reconsidered, replatforming how this all moves forward, what is the operational delivery that is most ideal given the modified network. And then the very final piece, this is some of the long-term pieces that need to be addressed relative to accessibility, relative to increased use, increased population within areas around these types of facilities. So these are low priority, but will be important at some point in time. So these include both Matthews and Meanings Cove, improving accessibility at these facilities, evolving some of the recreation and active pieces there to make sure they're multi-generational and certainly multi-use. So over time can look at those. Firefly Playground as an extension of this area is going to get very, very busy. You're doing the splash pad there, which is wonderful. So what pieces can be amended around that to really increase that as a gateway into this area as this area evolves forward. With that, that's the implementation plan. I think this is the first time we have spoken about that, and it's very broadly speaking, but you'll see the thing that's really important about the implementation. There are a number of projects that are listed here, but all of them are very much interrelated. So we look at any future component or any future facility within the town of Quispamsis, we're really considering other areas and how those work together and evolve at the same time. None of this is an emergency. All of this can happen rationally and over time. Certainly wants to think about or be thought about in a regional sense in many of these cases, and all of it's actually quite exciting. This has been a wonderful process. We've had a great time working with the community, a great time working with yourselves, and of course a wonderful time working with staff. As I said, you have an amazing staff, and Dana is going to be exactly the right person to move forward, as I said, in the second half of her career with this document. So with that, glad to end and answer any questions, unless, Dana, there's anything that I missed that I've talked too much.
Thank you so much for this presentation, and certainly is a wonderful capsule, I guess, of what Quispamsis is, what we have to offer, and what we have to look forward to in the future. And it is just such a gem. I mean, people come here not because we have paved roads, they come here because of what we have to offer. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that, and I will go to Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much, Mr. Scott, for this. I just wanted to commend everyone involved, certainly our Director of Community Services, who seems to be getting a lot of roses tonight. Good, well-deserved. As the Mayor just alluded to, people know our community to be very focused on its strengths in terms of our connection to nature and recreation. And so not surprisingly, we would have a 10-year plan that would be, aspirational and be in some ways a bit of a moonshot about some great things we want to see happen, but we have such a great starting foundation. And that's in no doubt that's related to the great leadership that Ms. Burton-Dixon provides. And I really also just want to say that I found as I went through the final draft, it was exciting. It was very. I loved the interlaced nature of stuff. You just alluded to it there in your closing comments that, one thing is considered and it sort of has ramifications on so many other things. And so when it comes to, for example, community parks, I was thinking as I was going through that for some folks in our town, that's maybe one of the primary or maybe the first at least interaction they have with our town officially is with a community park. I think about how when I first joined council, I remember there was a conviction expressed about the importance of having park access not just in one centralized location, but having recreation services available hither and yon around our town and accessible for everybody. And you can see that that's more and more the case. And I was really intrigued by the turf park bit down on 587 Hampton Road. That's kind of cool. But I also just wanted to say that recreation could be kind of mistakenly considered to be nothing more than bikes and kayaks and walking trails and so on. But I take note of the importance of the broader definition of the word community. And when I look at things like an emphasis on, for example, advancing pride parties and having a strategy that goes from where we are to where we know we should be when it comes to, celebrating diversity in our community with pride celebrations, I just think that's such a wonderful, it's like nothing is being missed. And we'll debate about prices and costs when budgets come, but for the moment, I just wanted to say, well done, everybody. It's really a great presentation and very exciting to read it over. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Councillor Luck, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, Mr. Scott, for the great presentation. Again, loved reading the proposal and kind of the plan forward. One of the things that I thought was very interesting is the population forecast. And the scary part that in the next 13 years, a third of our population will be over 65, including me. And less and less will be under the age of 24. So I'm really happy to see in this plan that you really focused on the intergenerational piece. And you mentioned accessibility a number of times, and I know we're talking accessibility in a broader sense, so I'm really, really happy to hear that as well. Another thing you mentioned that I kind of felt like a theme throughout is you used regional a lot. Talking about regional projects. And, we've been working potentially with Rothesay and Hampton, our neighbors, to plan for future regional facilities and active transportation. And just even your example on the screen where you had suggested that, we're going to eventually need 1.66 ice rinks. It's hard to have 1.5 ice rinks. So I think there's opportunities for regional collaboration. And especially in light of our new realities around regionalization and looking at the municipal reform and how we continue to face some of those challenges that we live every day in terms of increasing costs with infrastructure. So one of the things I'd love to hear more of in this plan is really how would we engage with our neighbors and what could we expect from those interactions, moving forward in terms of recreation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. Councillor Olson, please.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Mr. Scott, for your presentation. It reminds me of my original involvement in Quispamsis over 50 years ago, building ball fields and recreation parks, and it's expanded a little bit since then. But it's been great the way it's evolved. We're very, very fortunate to have Ms. Dana Burton-Dixon on our staff and helping lead the charge in all of these areas, and then bringing in professionals like yourself to guide us all along. And it's been a great experience, and we're very proud of everything that we have and that everything that we want to develop from here on too. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. Councillor Donovan, please.
Thank you, and thank you so much for your presentation. One of the things that I took away from it that I really enjoyed was the multi-generational part that you touched on. I like that we're not just building assets or building parks or building things with one set of people in mind. We're building it with multiple sets of people in mind. So that to me, it's very important because obviously everybody has different strengths. Some people can't move far. Some people, just different things like that. And I think that if we focus on making all of our assets multi-generational, then it'll certainly benefit us in the long run. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. Councillor Olson.
I think I've already spoken, and I don't have anything else to say about myself.
I thought perhaps you were making a motion.
Oh, yes, I'm prepared to make that motion, Your Worship. I'd like to, on behalf of council, thank Mr. Jim Scott for his presentation and the work associated with preparing the Recreation Master Plan for the town of Quispamsis. And it be referred to staff to work towards the implementation steps and guidelines as outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. It's been moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Bigger. On the question. And I'll just make one comment, and I think it's so important that when a town takes the initiative to use taxpayer dollars, that we move forward with a purpose. And what this plan shows is that we have a purpose as we move forward. And as you said, Mr. Scott, it doesn't have to be done today or tomorrow, but we have a guide now. We have a light at the end of that tunnel to show us where we're going to end up, and then we'll renew that again in 10 years' time. So I think it's so important to have this, and I'm really proud of it. So on the question, Councillor Luck.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. I just want
Whoops,
your comments. I think you've made some really great points, and I just want to commend Mr. Scott and our Dana Burton Dixon and our staff, because to your point, we're building on the future, but it was built with community involvement. It wasn't us deciding. You did a great job, pulling in the community and our residents to find out what their needs were. So kudos to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 5-0. Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. And we look forward to hearing from you again.
Thanks.
And not to put our Director of Community Services on the hot seat, but I would like for someone to give a motion just so that we have Ms. Dana Burton Dixon's accomplishments on record. So, Councillor Donovan. No, you're off the hook.
Thank you. I don't know how you got so lucky to get me to read this motion, but I would move that council congratulate Ms. Burton Dixon in being this year's recipient of Recreation New Brunswick's Jim Fox Award of Distinction in recognition of Dana's many achievements and contributions in the field of recreation and community services, both at the community level and through her professional association work. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. It's been moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Councillor Luck. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 5C. Envision St. John, the Regional Growth Agency 2022 year-end review. We have Heather Libby and Jillian McKinnon, acting CEOs. Welcome this evening to our town council. We're happy to have you here this evening.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Heather Libby, And I'm Jillian McKinnon. We are pleased to be here to talk about 2022. So as our investor, we're very happy to be here to share some of the good work that we've done as a relatively new agency. We're not even quite 2.5 years old. So I think you've all seen the presentation, so Heather and I will try and hit some of the highlights. We're going to bounce back and forth because that's how we like to roll. But so I'm just going to dive right in. If we can flip the slide, please, it would be great. Thank you. So one of the things that we like to, really convey is what our role is as an agency. So Don Mills is a well-known economist, policy guy across Atlantic Canada and even across Canada. He has a quote about what we should be looking for from our agency at Envision St. John, and I'm just going to read it. So Envision St. John is about cultivation, not the activation of growth. It's about creating the conditions for growth and developing an ecosystem that is growth ready. Envision St. John is not directly about job creation, but about ensuring the conditions for job creation are in place. In other words, to be growth ready. So a lot of things that we'll talk about as we go through the presentation is we do a lot of work on the marketing and sales side, which is about the attraction. But at the same time, we have to be ready for that growth. So we're working on a number of initiatives and opportunities to get ready for that growth as well. Next slide, please. We won't spend a lot of time on here. So Envision St. John is the marketing, sales, and support engine for the region, and we have been galvanizing our public and private sector partners in a new way that's driving results. So I think we'll dive right into some of the big things that we touched on in 2022. Next slide. So you may remember I was here with CEO Paulette Hicks last year to unveil our new place brand for the region, which is always moving forward. So we developed the place brand through a series of market research activities, whether that was testing value propositions. We did some place brand benchmarking. We really looked at what we had as assets as the region and leaned into what was true and authentic. Again, owning who we are as the St. John region, not trying to be somebody that we're not. We've launched a new website to reflect this regional brand, developed some value propositions that we're using to attract people, visitors, business, and investment. So this was the inaugural place brand for the region. This was a very heavy lift. It probably took us over a year to go through the whole process. We had, when we were here last to talk about it, we have a whole brand guidelines around it, who we are as a region, how we speak about ourselves, and it's really always about our history of success and the forward momentum that we're continuing to see in the St. John region. And Quispamsis, with your master recreation plan that we just saw, look at the places that we're going to go. And I'm a resident, so I just live right across the street, so I was actually very excited to see that. So I'm going to hand it over to Heather to talk about another initiative in 2022 that was really internal to the agency, but supporting the whole region.
Thank you. So it's the Regional Growth Dashboard. If you go to our website, there's a tab across the top. We introduced what we call the Regional Growth Dashboard. It is a bunch of data that is not relative to our agency, but it's actually the community's data. So there you can find information about leisure, real estate, population growth, tourism, trade, and quality of life. All kinds of information that municipalities, private sector, new residents, tourists can actually go onto the site and can do their own research and can be informed about how to make decisions or to develop strategy. And we also have an opportunity, to talk about. Sorry,
That's okay.
You could go.
No, go ahead. I think what Heather's trying to say is we have actually got some new data services in-house that each of the municipalities can avail of. And I believe some of the CAOs actually sat in on a session with our director, Jeff Sear, just late last week. So the dashboard and data services were really starting to blow out. We are a data-driven agency. We want to be making decisions and supporting opportunities through data. So hopefully, if you have not had a chance, please spend some time on the dashboard. Good?
This is what I'm really trying to say, is that there will be an opportunity for every member of the municipality as well as council to participate in a workshop. We're going to figure out what that right time is, but everybody will have an opportunity to get more comfortable with that information.
Okay, the next slide, please. So UMB's Integrated Health Initiative. One of the last two examples were really things that were driven internally from the agency, and often we get questions, how are you supporting the work of other partners throughout the region? So I think this is an excellent example. So I'm sure most of you have heard about the University of New Brunswick's Integrated Health Initiative. It's establishing a world-class center of excellence in applied health innovation. In 2022, the missing piece was the required funding for the state-of-art state-of-the-art purpose-built infrastructure, the Health and Social Innovation Center. So at Envision St. John, we supported that work through some marketing and sales support, helping to develop the value proposition of why it was important for the region, some government relations, and opening some doors to some potential funding, which actually came through. So you can see in the quote at the top from Dr. Petra Hoff, the VP St. John at UNB, Envision St. John facilitated the relationship building that was critical in getting the infrastructure funding approved. The recent $27.2 million infrastructure announcement would not have been possible without the efforts and support of the agency. And we continue to support this initiative, so we are also working on the St. John Health and Technology District, as well as continuing to support IHI and the huge potential that's happening up at Tucker Park.
Next up, at the top of the meeting, we talked about the Lycée. It is a French school sponsored by the French University with international curriculum that is recognized around the world. We are exceptionally fortunate that this international school has selected the St. John region to establish what will be the 13th Lycée in Canada. This is more than just a school. It is actually an economic development play. What this means for anybody who wants to set up a business here or move here is that this is a region that represents a great deal of growth around opportunity for careers, and it symbolizes quite a bit for people in the business community. If they wanted to move here, what does this mean for their children? That there's an opportunity to go to school at the Lycée. So it's more than just a school.
Next slide, please. So the St. John Theatre Company, I think everybody's heard that they want to repurpose the old courthouse into a playhouse, but they were having a hard time articulating why that was going to be a good return on investment for some of the potential funding partners. So we really worked with Stephen Tobias and his team to articulate why it was important from a recreation, cultural, tourism, talent, economic lens. So really demonstrating why having a cultural hub and helping to refurbish another building in Uptown St. John was very important. So we put together what we call like a bit of a pitch deck for Stephen and his team, and they were successful in acquiring some municipal funding to help really get that project off the ground, and I believe they're shovel ready. There's just a few more things they need to get figured out. So that was their support of the courthouse project.
And then, well, we all know about the Memorial Cup that was here. The role we played was in convening the group of supporters around this, putting the pitch deck together to actually win this opportunity to host the event. And interesting story that when the teams were playing here, the Lycée contingent was here, and they saw this as a reason to want to settle. So it's these types of events, whether it be the Memorial Cup or other events that you're hosting within your community, are actually creating attraction opportunities for things like the Lycée. So you can see it's part of a larger integrated model.
And one thing about the Memorial Cup, too, that I think I just want to note, because I think it's really important, is that was the first time all of the mayors in the region signed a letter of support that went to Premier Higgs to demonstrate the collective support for the hosting of this event, which was so critical coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. So sport tourism is a real economic driver for the region, and so all the mayors came together, said, yes, we support this initiative. So that was a huge thing in 2022. The Area 506 Shipping Container Village, as well as the festival, Envision St. John and its predecessor, Discover St. John, has been a legacy sponsor, investor in that event, which is now a signature event across the province of New Brunswick, supporting music, culture, and goods. They've had tremendous success and have been able to grow it and introduce the Boxcar Music Festival, which is happening the week before, and then actually extend their brand into the Waterfront Shipping Container Village, where we did have a welcome center that we piloted in 2022, and taking our learnings from 2022, we are now in a partnership with Port St. John in 2023 to have we're in a bigger container. There'll be a bit more activity and activation happening within that space, because it'll be interpretation not just of Port St. John in the Bay, but again, we offer no wrong door policy. If somebody comes in and wants to ask a question as an entrepreneur or as a potential investor, the staff on site are being trained on customer service techniques that we consider that we call no wrong door. So we will help anybody that comes into that space. So we've been calling them welcome centers as opposed to just information centers. So that's something else that was new in 2022, and that rolls right into our last example. If we can flip the slide.
So I'm just going to read a quote from the CEO of the Port St. John. The collective impact model at Envision St. John means we are no longer working in silos. They are galvanizing the right players locally, provincially, and federally. We have seen this at the port. We are working lockstep with Envision St. John. I think this is a really important message in the role that we are playing in as the role of a convener. So at Port St. John, this is one of the most unique things that we offer in this region. You can go anywhere else. We have a port, and that presents really unique opportunities. So the first, for 2022, we were really focused on growth readiness because we know that with the growth of the port, there's going to be at least 800 employees. So what does that mean for training and recruitment? So that involved getting a training simulator, as well as starting to develop stronger relationships with the unions and the longshoremen, et cetera. This is moving into what we're calling Workforce Partnership 2.0, because it's going to extend to what are the local businesses, how can they avail of the opportunities that's coming out of the port? What does this mean for the infrastructure development within the municipality? It's a huge undertaking. We've laid the foundation in 2022, and now we're going to be partnering with people across the province, ACOA, as well as local business, to see how we can actually make the opportunity at port, make it work harder for everyone and not just for the people who are investing.
Okay, and then if we can change the slide, I don't think it's any secret that we've set some 10-year outcomes as an agency. So to grow the region's population by 25,000, increase our municipal tax base by 30 to 35%, and improve our region's place brand. But one of the things that we have decided over the course of 2 years is we've learned some things around our 10-year outcomes that some people want some more immediate metrics. So what we've done is created a scorecard, which you have in front of you as well. And so if you flip the slide to the first one, again, you've heard me say it a couple times now, we're in the business of attracting people, visitors, business, and investment. So the scorecard is designed to provide some leading indicators and list some of the initiatives that we're doing to support the attraction of those 4 lanes of business.
Yep. So just in conclusion, if you take a look at that scorecard, to read it, there are 4 different categories that Jillian mentioned. We have targets for some, and then we have on the right-hand side the initiatives that we were doing, the smaller things that we were doing to support moving those leading indicators. And then if you go to the very last page of our presentation, we wanted to leave you with a taste of what we're already working on in 2023 and planning going forward. And there's quite a bit of initiative that are happening. I already mentioned the port. We are one of the other piece that ties into the previous presenter. We're doing some forecasting, population forecasting, so that we can understand what it's going to take to grow to 25,000 people, and then what are those levers so that we can start planning accordingly across the region. There is also a real estate development strategy that I think is going to be really important, because our single most barrier to growth is going to be housing. And we recognize that as some of the work that we do as it ties into our strategy of growth readiness. So we've got a lot of work that we just shared with you, some of the major things that we accomplished in 2022 that with our partners, but we have a lot more on deck, as you can see, for 2023. And we look forward to sharing with you the results of that next year.
I think I'm going to give a plug for an event, though. So we are partnering with Opportunities New Brunswick, the Chamber, and as well as Pedal on an event next Thursday, the 24th, powered by people, Wednesday, May 24th, powered by people. And so that is to support the war on talent. If you are looking for employees, future or now, this is the event to come to. So this is something that is new to the region. We're very excited about it. So yes, so if you know anybody or any businesses or yourself that is looking for some talent solutions, and you know, it's we're not doing things the way we used 2 years ago. So you need to be innovative and changing with the times. So that's what people are going to be taking away from that. So May 24th.
May 24th, for anybody who has employees, this is a good use of your time. It's a half day, and there'll be different topics around HR for the non-HR to building your talent pipe from student to staff, with experts and businesses who are already demonstrating what that work's all about. And there's also going to be a job fair in the afternoon. So it's a big day. We're trying something to try and reach with the employers. There's lots of activities we recognize as part of our talent strategy, lots of people supporting the talent or the job seeker, but what are we doing to help support the employers? So we saw that as a gap. How can we help accelerate employers to find the people they need to do their job because we have less people than we have for jobs. So how can we uncover that untapped labor market that we already have?
So that's the official presentation, and we skipped over a lot of highlights, but you had it in front of you, so we're happy to take any questions or provide any clarity that we may have missed as we went through that rather quickly. 15 minutes, not bad.
Yeah,
we timed
Pretty
it.
Well, thank you so much. This is a wonderful overview. And, you know, when I talk about Quispamsis, I always say we are a community of choice. And you are looking at the entire region as a preferred destination. And that's a wonderful way for us to perceive the community in which we live and the greater boundaries. We are sending people to May 24th. And so some of our employees will be there, and we will be certainly looking for the attraction of people to come and fill some of our employment opportunities. So people attraction, job opportunities, business attraction, these are all the things that all of the communities within the region need help in. And you are meeting that. The lycée, so that school, I met with Mr. Olivier yesterday, and he is one of the gentlemen who brought the school idea to Envision, and Envision jumped on that, and here we are today with an international school coming to the Greater St. John region. And what that is doing, you know, I've heard people say, oh, we don't want to take from the teachers that we have. They are bringing 30 teachers and TAs with them in September of 2024. They're bringing families with them who will need places to live in communities such as Quispamsis. They are asking, you know, for families now to board. So they want the message out there that they want us to send the message out that, you know, are you willing to board some of the students between 14 and 17 years old? Councillor Bigger is our chair of transportation, and we may have opportunities through Envision, through the lycée, to provide more or better transportation from Quispamsis into the city of St. John with students that will be attending that school. And they're looking at, I believe, 900 students over the next 5 years or so, having the population of the school boost to that point. So I'm certainly happy to see the involvement that we're seeing with Envision, and the inroads that you are making to make our community stronger and better. So thank you, and I will offer up now for anyone on council who would like to make a comment. I think I've said it all. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not going to repeat what the mayor said, but she's speaking for all of council on this one. It's very well presented, well documented, well researched and proposed and everything like that. And it's showing a lot of real positive results for the region, and that's important. But on that format, I'd like to move that Ms. Libby and Ms. McKinnon be thanked for the presentation, updating council on Envision St. John's 2022 year in review, and report be received and filed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Luck. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your evening. Moving forward to item 5D, Town of Quispamsis 2022 audited financial statements. Welcome Mr. Peter Logan of Teed Sanders Doyle. That's a mouthful. And I didn't get it out right. So
You must know the name
welcome.
by now. Thank you, Your
Welcome, Peter.
Worship. I appreciate that. So it is Teed Saunders Doyle. My name's Peter Logan. Been a partner there for quite a while, and we've had the privilege of being the auditors for the town for quite a long time. I think when I first started to do this audit, I had a lot less gray hair, so it's not because of this audit, but anyway. So we met with Finance Committee last week and went through these statements in a fair bit of detail. So tonight's presentation will be fairly brief. I guess I'll give you a brief overview. So if we look at page 1, So that is our auditor's report. So our job as the external auditors is to come into the town. We come in February and make sure that the town's accounting records and financial records are in accordance with what we call Canadian public sector accounting standards. And so those are the standards that all municipalities in Canada must follow. So on our report, the top paragraph there is our opinion paragraph. So we did find that the town was in accordance with those public sector accounting standards. So that is what we would refer to as a clean audit report. If we look now at page 3, which is our statement of operations for the year, you'll notice in the heading that we use the word consolidated. So as part of public sector accounting standards, we are required to include in these financial statements any entities that you would control. So for the town of Quispamsis, that would be your fire department, police department, and the library. Now, the wrinkle in it, of course, is you share those entities with the town of Rothesay. So we do what we call a proportionate consolidation. So roughly 60% of those financial statements for those entities are included in these numbers, and then 40% roughly would be in Rothesay's numbers. So if we look on, so page 3 is your statement of operations. So this year revenue, which is in the top section, so property tax warrant this year was at $26,571,267. So up about 1.7 million or 6.9% from the year before. Total revenues were at $35,423,000 compared to $33,264,000 the year before. With respect to expenses, so these categories that we hear, general government, protective services, transportation services, those are all common within all municipalities. These are the classifications that we are required to use. So with that, the total expenditures this year were at $32,061,557. Just a bit over budget. Budget was $31,939,000, so not too bad on an entity of this size. So you can see when we subtract away those expenses from the revenue of $35 million, so your annual surplus this year was at $3.362 million. Now, it should be noted that under public sector accounting standards, there's an item under revenue called conditional government transfers of $3.1 million. So the bulk of that is money that the town receives to go towards capital infrastructure. We are required to show those grants as revenue. Now, the related costs would then be capitalized, and those expenses get recognized over a number of years. So you don't have a matching of the revenue that's coming in versus the expense. So when you see 3.3 million, that money's been spent. It's just been spent, or the bulk of it's been spent in capital. And we do, as far as your funding surplus goes for 2022, so that is sort of the operational side. It's in your general fund, it was $123,723, and utility fund it was $31,750. So that's those surpluses are kind of when you do your budgets, money coming in, money going out. Whereas the public sector accounting statements, which we refer to here, it's more, it encompasses capital grants as well as other expenses. You also have reserve funds within the town as well. So those are money, it's money that's set aside basically for future capital or operational needs. At the end of last year, at the beginning of this year, those reserves were at $7.193 million. And then during the year, you drew down on those reserves. $1.895 million was taken out of the reserves, predominantly for capital. So in your general capital, you used $1.2 million in reserve funding for capital projects. And then within your utility fund, there was $1.7 million used. So that was part of your capital this year. So if we look at the next page, that's page 4. Which is the statement of financial position, or call it the balance sheet. Some you may know it as. So within this, a couple of things to highlight on there would be the assets, financial assets at the top section, there was $12,123,000 worth of financial assets. So that includes cash and accounts receivable are the big components of that. Under your liabilities, long-term debt, so that number at the end of this year was at $20,956,000. So during the year, there was one new debenture for $2,081,000 received by the town, and then you paid down $2.214 million worth of debt debentures. And then we also look at, as part of the audit, we look at your debt service ratio, which is an important number. It basically indicates what percentage of your expenditures are going towards servicing debt. So that's principal repayments as well as any interest. So within your general fund, that's at 6.4%, which is good. 20% in the general fund is considered sort of the top end of where you'd want your debt service to be. So at 6.4%, you're well underneath that. And then within your utility fund, the debt service is at 25.3%. And the top end of within utility is 50%. So you're still well within that as well. So at 25.3% for your utility. The other big item on the statement of financial position is your tangible capital assets. So that's the capital projects. So this year the town added $11.2 million in capital projects. $6.4 million of that was on infrastructure. So that would include things like roads, your wastewater, sort of not the sexy assets like the QPLEC, but this is the stuff that sort of we're driving on, and it's the water, and it's also your wastewater. That's really it for my presentation. As I said, we did go into a lot of detail on last week with Finance Committee. But if anybody has any questions on these audited statements, I would be happy to answer those.
Peter, on behalf of council, I'd like to thank you very much for the work that you've done on this, and I'd also like to publicly thank our finance team. Certainly they work very diligently to make sure that our numbers are good, and running a town the size of Quispamsis is no small undertaking. And certainly we are pleased to see that the numbers are coming out favorably for the residents of Quispamsis. So I will go to Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to move that council accept the municipality of Quispamsis consolidated financial statements for the 2022 calendar year as presented by Teed, Saunders, and Doyle.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr.
Right. Thank you
Doyle.
very
And
much.
Peter, I have some paperwork here for you.
Oh, great.
Thank you so much. And Peter, do you have a statement for us, or?
I'm going to drop that off on, I think Krista's coming in on Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll have a couple of, I'll just drop them off
Okay.
here, and then you guys can sign those up, and we'll
Perfect.
send them off.
Thank you.
All
Have a
right,
good
thanks.
evening. Moving on to item number 6, public hearings. There are none. Item number 7, minutes of the previous meeting. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you. I'd move that those minutes be received and filed.
It's been moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, please vote now. Little technical challenge here. Motion carried unanimously. And item number 8, Unfinished business, item 8A, proposed seasonal watercraft rentals operation at Meenan's Cove Beach. Business case detail from John O'Brien, the applicant. Welcome, John.
Unfinished business, I guess it is. I gave you guys a report. I don't really know the process here. This is my second time doing it, I think. Last week was my first, right? You guys had some concerns, or questions rather, and I kind of made up a report and submitted it. Hopefully it answered a lot of your questions. That's the name for a RIP, is the name of our company. I mean, I think it's pretty, it's 13 pages, but there's images and it's pretty brief, but it's an easy read. If I'll just open it up to kind of general questions, because it's a lot, you know, be the same presentation twice.
Okay, thank you.
If anyone wants to ask anything, I guess.
Okay, thank you, Mr. O'Brien. I will open the floor now to council for any questions that may have come out of your report.
Thank you.
Councillors, any questions? Seeing there are none, would somebody like to make a motion, please? Councillor Luck.
May I ask a question? Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. I guess one question I have, you know, I mean, I love to see people with entrepreneurial spirit, you know, and offerings for our town, because I think that might be something that residents would enjoy. I still can't get over the concern I have around safety. I do. So I mean, maybe you can speak to that a little bit in terms of just Meehan's Cove Beach, where there's lots of kayakers, there's sailboats, there's kids swimming. And I'm just worried about having people that aren't, you know, routinely on Sea-Doos or what are they called? Sea-Doos, okay, Sea-Doos. Jet skis, yeah. Kind of venturing out. And I guess also from personal experience, you know, there is a lot of areas that are a bit more shallow in that area and weedy. So in terms of an inexperienced jet skier getting into that situation where the motor sucks up grass in that area. So I just, you know, I'm wondering if you've actually considered even maybe a different type, like kayaks, you know, just because then you take a, I mean, it would still be a huge, because again, a kayak, a lot of people don't have the, you know, capacity to actually deliver kayaks or transport kayaks. They don't actually have a kayak, but it's a beautiful opportunity to actually get out and experience kayaking, which then takes, you know, that level of risk and danger away, because, you know, you're not going to, you know, run someone over in a kayak, hopefully if they're swimming.
That's right.
So anyway, I just was wondering if you kind of considered kind of an alternative.
Definitely considered. Well, the safety, the way we see it is, like, I've been a beachgoer for, you know, like all my adulthood, and all of us probably have. There's boats going all over the place over there already, right? Left and right, and there's Sea-Doos going everywhere left and right. And there's no one getting injured. And like you said, people that are going to be renting could be new to it, right? So what we want to do is like, if there's a different area, maybe like on the beach, that's better, that's safer, that we can just totally avoid people, then we'd be, you know, we're open to it. We just kind of want to get something exciting in here for people to kind of, you know, like something new, something for people to do and see how that goes. And there's some other things, like we thought about, you know how you guys have netting with the buoys that you net off your swimming zones? Do you know what I mean? Where the lifeguard is, and then anywhere beyond that is in the lifeguard. We were thinking about making one of them, just a big, really long, and having flags on it, right? And that's kind of like, it's pretty obvious, this is where you're gonna come in. And then there's no traffic any which way. Like, we could, you know, part of our budget would be to put that way out, and that would become part of Meehan's Cove. Like that's part of the, we want to be integrated into Meehan's Cove Beach, right? As a rental company there, and maybe grow into something with Meehan's Cove and have something there that, I don't know, we have considered the safety for sure. And I understand your concern. I think that you can't know until you try, right? Like, nothing will ever come of anything until you try. and we're going to do everything we can to cover our bases on that. Like across the country, there's a lot of these places, and we've been in contact with them on what they do, and we're trying to mimic a lot of theirs. So we're trying to do it very best we can, and I think that's all anyone can do, really. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks very much, Mr. O'Brien, for coming back. Thanks for your report. You certainly have answered a lot of the questions that were kind of left outstanding, the first time, and so that's how it's done, and I certainly appreciate that. And it does seem like you have, sort of I appreciate your kind of flexibility, kind of malleability, like let's just make this work. Let's find a way that works best, You've proposed, for example, that picnic table hut and then a spot kind of that you identified, but I think you'd even said in your report, look, if there's a better spot, you tell us and let's work it out. So I appreciate all that, man. That's very important, and it shows somebody who's willing to work with the town and try to create something that will work. This was, as you may know, a couple of years ago, someone came before council to ask for just a one-day opportunity to do some jet skis. And that was, I think it was a fundraising effort, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And that was approved, but then it didn't happen, actually.
Yep.
And then it was about 10 years ago that someone came before council. You weren't proposing this business then, and I wasn't on council then.
That's right.
So it was before our time, right? But someone came and wanted to consider this, and the council of the day turned it down at that time. And what I wish I knew is, like, have you done any polling to get any sense of whether people are crying out for this sort of thing? I mean, we, clearly, I mean, we've heard in our recreation master plan that was presented this evening, there's a great affinity in our town for nature and recreation and outdoor activity. And I totally take your point that outdoor activity is not, like motorized outdoor activity, is motorsports are very, very popular, and kayaks aren't everybody's cup of tea. I get that. But I just, the risks that exist inherent to motorsports are, of course, they can be mitigated, but they are much greater than, paddling in a canoe or a kayak or what have you. Nothing's completely danger-free, of course, and I just wonder if there's any, like, if you have been able to do any kind of, I wish we had some insight as to the community's interest in something like this, through some polling or.
Well, I'm already looking at 2 more jet skis because there's people already trying to book mine for almost the whole summer now, week by week. They want it people want them to take them and go elsewhere, right? So, and my premise is to have like a beachside thing. So it's like people are already wanting, and there's a company called Thrill Seekers. He operates in the Grand Bay. Similar idea, except he doesn't do beachside. He does rentals. He's got 6, and he's expanding to 10 this year. And they're rented. They're booked solid. Like people pay big money to have them. They take them away for 3 or 4 days. And he works a day job, so he doesn't want to do the beachside thing, and he'd have to go through council over there or whatever. But according to him, it's wild.
Yeah, and the popularity of jet skis or Sea-Doos or whatever it is, there's no doubt they're very popular, But in the situation that you mentioned about your colleague, I mean, that's something where he's renting to people that are going elsewhere with it, and presumably putting it in somewhere in the water where that's an acceptable, sort of watercraft for wherever they're putting it in. And I mean, in our case, we're considering, we have to sort of consider the broadest sort of sense of what is going to kind of bring the highest measure of sort of satisfaction and enjoyment of the area where you're proposing to put this to the most people. And I'm a little concerned about I don't actually think that that's a really large area. You said it yourself, there are lots of craft going left, right, and center there already. And anyway, I'm not convinced currently that it's something that Quispamsis is crying out for. And I don't mean to come off as some sort of fuddy-duddy or, out of touch with what younger people are into, but That's a concern I have currently. I just wish that I had a little more sense that the community is eager for something like this. So thank you very much. Though.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. I'll move on to Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too am concerned about liability, and there's a lot of unknowns out there that are uncontrollable, although they could, it'd be nice if it was able to be done, but there's too many options there. But I'd like to thank, on behalf of council, thank Mr. O'Brien and commend him for his initiative. However, his proposal be denied at this time based on council's concern about safety, noise, and liability issues associated with proposed jet ski rental operation. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Bigger. On the question, Councillor Bigger?
Oh, no, I was just
No.
seconding.
Okay. Please vote now. Motion carried 5-0. Thank you very much, Mr.
a
O'Brien,
lot.
for your time and for your efforts here this evening. Item 8B is discussion on the Qplex. Did we remove that? Okay. Discussion on the Qplex as a regional facility, pros and cons. This was brought forward by Councillor Miller and a staff report from Acting CAO, Mr. Aaron Kennedy. Councillor Luck, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move that council postpone this discussion on the Qplex as a regional facility until June 20th, 2023, regular meeting when Councillor Miller will be in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Luck, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 5-0. On to correspondence. We do not have any. Item number 9. Item 10, bylaws. There are none this evening. Item 11, new business. There is none. Item 12, reports. Councillor Bigger.
Your Worship, I move that reports be received and filed.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 5-0. Item number 13, business arising from Committee of the Whole, and there isn't any. Item number 14, adjournment. Wishing everybody joy in the days remaining in this week. It's been moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried. Safe travels home, everyone. Good night.